Welcome friends to the newest edition of Seahawkers What If, the most unique Seahawks preview show in the multiverse. And this is still the off-season roster spectacular. This is part 2. So if you have not watched part 1, that's part 1 for the unlearned out there. It's out on our YouTube channel, right? So youtube.com/Seahawkers podcast. Go check out part 1 where we reviewed, honestly, I think earnestly, our offense as it currently stands. Now we're into part 2. We're talking defense. We got the whole gang together. And since it is What If, of course, we have the protector of the multiverse, Mr. Phil. Mr. Phil, how are you doing today? Are you ready to bring us the great questions again about this current Seahawks roster as we inch ever closer to this 2023 draft?
Yes, I'm excited. There were even a few changes today. I saw a few things dropped off. So unfortunately, it wasn't the names that I can't pronounce. It was all the pronounceable ones that are still on the roster as we look at the defense. But I am interested. This is actually the group. We did the offense, but this is the group that I'm more interested in finding out kind of your guys' vibe on your confidence in our position groups. It's been a little bit, though. It's been a little bit. So if you didn't hear part 1, you might want to jump back and listen to that. Had some interesting back and forth. There's definitely a few where there was varied opinions. What do you have are you looking forward to the second half here, Adam?
Oh man, I've been looking forward to this since we did the first half, man. And look, it's always a pleasure to have a first go at What If, like it's nice to basically be in the Bill Murray of What If, right? It's Groundhog's Day every time for me.
Your first time on What If. That's pretty cool. We almost had a What If without Clinton, which has never happened. And he did manage to spread his wings and fly to the hotel and greet us. So we're glad to have his nodding, smiling voice with us. Brandan, I know last time you were super prepared to the point to where we couldn't even keep up. How have you been looking forward to this particular episode?
I've been looking forward to this one because I think where you're getting at with your interest in this, I'm also interested because the defense has, I think, the most variance as opposed to the offense, where every group is pretty good on the offensive side, and on the defense you have some position groups that are almost bad.
Yeah. Don't want to say it, but yes, on offense we only had the interior O-line that we all agree, or you all agree, that we have to do better. Everything else is like, I'm good, I'd like to be better, but I'm pretty good. On defense, I get the feeling we're not going to get we're going to have some groups here that we're not totally stoked about, other than to say we're stoked about what they're going to do in the draft, maybe to bolster some of these areas. But if we just started the season now, I think we'd be kind of terrified in some of our defensive areas, if I had to guess.
Very terrified. Yeah, not just kind of.
I think so too. And before we do dive into the defensive side, Brandan, it is your birthday. So happy birthday, dude. I hope it was a good one for you.
44, 43.
44.
44.
It's a good magnum year for you, my friend. I don't know what that means, but it might be good.
Yeah, I think I was my healthiest ever at 44. It was a great year.
Oh
no, don't tell me that.
I just will ride off a cliff the next year. So no, not quite.
I just arrived at 45.
Well, I just want to welcome Brandan to catching up to 44, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
You beat him then, Adam. You got there first?
Yeah, I did. Okay. Yeah, 3 weeks, I think. Yeah, about that.
I'm the last one here of the group.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Brandan, if you had a birthday wish for all the followers, the potential followers out there, what would you ask of the good people that are tuning in, maybe for the first time or the second time? What can they do to make your birthday that much more special for you and maybe even us?
Well, they have to go subscribe to the show on YouTube.
Yes.
Make sure, that they're following us there. Make sure that if they want to support the show, they can go to getintheflock.com. The standard things. It's just a normal day.
Yes.
If you're watching the premiere, drop some 44s there for Brandan. Some 44s. Hit the 44 button with the congratulations.
Yeah, which is awesome. So I'm not even. Do we have any 44s on the roster? I don't think so. Is anybody?
We have in the past.
Oh yeah, in the past for sure. So I don't think this year.
It's not one of the best Seahawks numbers either. Let's be honest.
Not a great. Yeah, Devin Bush just took number 11, which was interesting.
Finner.
I was like, what? How have we not retired Percy Harvin's number by now? And hung that he did enough in a 43-8 victory, right? I mean, I feel like number 11 should be up in the canyons there.
Yeah, we need to cool down with the let's retire all these numbers and remember that we need a 90-man roster. And now that we've added 0, we have 100 numbers. So it might not be. We got to be a little careful on the retiring. Hey, do you remember who really wanted number 44 and they wouldn't let him have it?
Brian Bosworth.
Yes.
But you know which linebacker has 44 now? Nick Bellore.
Nick Bellore. Yeah.
He's 44.
That was going to be my guess too.
Shame on me. Shame on me. Yes. Well, good thing we're talking defense and good. This way what a segue, fellas. So
the segue is
between
you come to the Seahawks podcast for the great segues.
Yeah, I don't know how I beefed on that one, but between two Ferns, between two Bellores, the 4 and the 4, there's great symmetry as always on What If, and yet I goofed. There's Nick Bellore, our best linebacker potentially this year.
Maybe we just need to go to inside linebacker first. Get this What If started with
Let's
defense.
do that, please.
Bosworth and Bellore. We do have some B's on the defense here, and maybe since we got our ABCs all together, Adam, Brandon, and Clinton, maybe we need to start with B for Brandan. I know he's stoked about the inside linebackers. If you're not familiar with what we're doing here, everyone, this is our confidence in our position groups before the draft, and our wise Seahawker voices are going to rate them 0 to 9. I know I blew it. It should have been 0 to 12, but there's a reason for this. 0 to 9, they are going to rate them how we are looking going into the draft for 2023. And then how you feel about our position groups on into the future. Brandan, the only man we have on for more than this season happens to be number 44, your birthday friend, Mr. Nick Bellore. We do have Brooks, Wagner, Bush, Radigan, and Vi Jones all for 2023. What's your confidence on the inside linebackers?
Probably a 4.
That's the number of the day, huh?
Well, it's not good. And the only reason that it's as high as a 4 is because Bobby's coming back, right? Yeah. And that's it still doesn't make
so you're
me
saying
feel...
4 for this season. You're only giving it a 4 for this season, not future. 4 out of 9
for this season. Because we have Bobby and who is the depth pieces. There's questions around Bush number 11. If Bobby were to not work out, then we need him at normal Bobby Wagner form for the entire year for me to even count it as a 4. So there's just too many questions to have a lot of confidence, and I might even be generous by giving it a 4 just because it is the number of the day. But this is by far one of the groups that I'm most concerned about, not just now, but then also going forward. And am I giving my future grade too?
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, a 4.
A 4. Okay. So you ended up with a 44 on the board. Adam, the inside linebackers in today's Sesame Street are brought to you by the letters B and the number 4. What is your confidence for this year and the future at inside linebacker? Now, remember, we don't have 2 inside linebackers on the field for every play, probably a little over half the plays or sometimes less. But how do you feel about the position group, Adam?
Well, before I answer that, basically, I want to, just push back on Brandan a little bit. I mean, 4 for this year, and that's boosted up because of the Wags. That's a boost up. Oh, come on, man. I thought, just because of Wags, I give it a 6. Not because I am stoked about this group. I do think that it's a weak point on the defense at this point, but Bobby has shown that year in, year out, he is healthy and productive. I mean, just look at his season last year in LA, and it was pretty darn good. He's still playing at a good level. Now, it does bother me, the coverage ability there. That's still going to be a bit of an issue and something that we struggle with. But the addition of Bush, that doesn't raise the needle much for me. In fact, that would almost bring it down to a 5 when I look at that, just after talking.
What about the
to
hair? What about the hair? Do you want to give it something for his hair?
Oh, that's a 49. Like
Okay.
on a scale of 1 to 10, like that's magnificent. Never changed, Devin Bush, never changed. That is amazing stuff. But after talking to some Steelers fans in my family, they were not sad to see Devin Bush go. And can he turn it around in Seattle? Maybe. I mean, the culture does seem to help certain players, and maybe coming from a more strict system that Tomlin ran and a ship that he ran, and coming to a Pete Carroll led place, maybe it kind of unlocks him a little bit. I'm dubious about that. Because so we're rating this with the guys that are currently on the roster, right? Like we're not taking into account what's coming here in the next 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
I think it's going to change a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. All right. 5. I'm going to go back to 5. Brandan has sucked my optimism down here.
All right,
it's
so
a 5 right
here
now because there is no depth. Who knows when Brooks is coming back? He blew that thing out, late in the year. I mean, if he even gets back by late in the season, I think that's miraculous for him. It's just kind of tough. Now for the future,
Ballor's the only one we have signed after this.
Yeah, I know. I do think that they'll probably re-sign Brooks, and I think the injury will help them get him in at a cheaper number. So,
hope so.
Let's say a 6 because I do trust in Pete and John to go out and find linebackers in this draft. I think it's going to happen.
Okay. Well, so you got a 5 and a 4. I mean, there's some symmetry with that with linebacker for the Seahawks, right? So we got a 5 and a 4.
That's Bobby's number. I do have a question. Since Brooks is a first rounder, and this would be his year 5, is he boxed into? Is that just like not like? Isn't he boxed into some pay range already? It's like
I think we skipped on it, didn't we, Brandon? Did we not?
Oh, they didn't pick up his 5th year.
They already said no.
He's going into his 4th, and he will be a free agent, unrestricted.
Interesting. Okay.
After the Super Bowl,
I forgot that time had passed. Interesting. Okay. All right. So, Mr. Phil, I'm assuming you want me to weigh in here.
I was ready for you.
Just move on.
Okay.
I mean, thanks for the effort
for you to fly in. You are
going
to rate this thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like this group. Brooks is damaged. Radigan's off an injury, and I'm not really sure about him. By Jones, I'm actually more excited about than most of them, because I think he could play a bit. I'm a 4. It's just I don't think it's very good, and I'm hopeful that Devin Bush surprises to the upside, and he's that year 1 Devin Bush, and he flies around the ball, and we do things schematically that allow him to kind of be that free player down there, almost like a box safety, and just go chase the ball and tackle, because he seems to get washed out and lost quite a bit. So I'm just struggling with this. And if I had to put it one more year forward, I take it down to a 3, because it's one more year Wagner older. Who knows if the 1 year wonder Bush will work out, and Brooks is coming off a major injury. Maybe it's a 2. I'll go 2, 4 and 2. There's very little security going past this year. Bobby keeps it afloat, and I didn't love that signing.
I could totally see that. Okay. I'm messing up all my ratings here, but I just fixed it. So yeah, we're pretty low on the inside linebacker. Not surprised. We're going to go kind of next door. And just so you listeners at home kind of know what group we're looking at here. When I say edge, outside linebacker edge, we're really talking about the 3-4 guys on the outside. Their primary jobs are to rush the passer. When we go to defensive line, we're going to be talking about the guys that are pretty much inside in the base 3-4. They're going to be your nose and your guys next to him. So I don't know if that helps us kind of see where we're going here. Our edge is mostly in the base, those outside linebackers. And to give you the names we have Darrell Taylor and Nwosu signed for this year. Hopefully, at least I hope we get Nwosu extended. Mafe we have for 3 more years on his rookie deal, as well as Tyreek Smith, who hasn't seen the field yet. We have for at least 3. And I do believe because he didn't play, we have some option there for another year after that, but correct me if I'm wrong. Then we have Robinson, Chris Garrett, and Onujiogu for a year. So
Nailed it.
let's, yeah, I know I just got that one perfectly. Let's start right in here with, we'll go right back to Clinton on the edge, these outside linebackers. What's your confidence in this group as we prepare for the draft in a week and a half?
Yeah, so I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I like this group a lot. I like that. I like Alton Robinson to come back and contribute. He looked really good 2 years ago, kind of just had that injury year. Obviously, we didn't see Tyreek Smith yet. And then the other three, which I think is the core of it, with Taylor, Nwosu, and Mafe. It's good. It's Taylor suffered against the run. He was not good setting the edge. Surprisingly, Mafe was really quite good at setting the edge. So they complemented each other. I threw this stat out a couple times in a row, and I think it's just one of those things that it bears repeating. There were only 19 dudes in the league last year who had 10 sacks or more. That's it for the entire league. 19 guys. Nwosu and Taylor had 9.5. They were right on that cusp. And Nwosu had like 4 or 5 dudes in the grasp, or like right there. If we get some more interior pressure, Nwosu's numbers should go up. So as an edge group, I like them. It's a solid 7. I think it could even pitch a bit higher, especially with Mafe if he progresses. If he takes like that next like sophomore year step, I liked him as a run defender. If he gets a little more juice in his pass rush, I think this can go to an 8 and be like a sneaky good edge class that most of the NFL just doesn't understand is quite good.
Brandan, how do you feel about the outside linebackers and the edges? I didn't get your future rating. I didn't get your future rating, Clinton.
Oh, I'm sorry. You guys froze on me there for a second. I blame the hotel Wi-Fi. My future rating is a 2 because they're
for
not
outside linebacker.
We don't have any of them. There's none of them are signed besides Mafe.
Yeah.
I mean, and Tyreek Smith, who hasn't played it down yet in the NFL. Yeah. So it's a 2. Like extend Nwosu, and that jumps to a 5 automatically.
Sure.
But right now, it's a 2.
That makes some sense. How about you, Brandan? How are you feeling about this group?
I feel okay about it. I don't love them, but I like them. Darrell Taylor, I wish we could have seen more from him last year. Clinton did mention, the 9.5 sacks, but my expectation level for him was so much higher in hoping that he could be that every down type player, and also being a guy who could do well in coverage. And I don't think we saw a ton of that. At least I felt like Nwosu was better in terms of being a more well-rounded player. And that was kind of where my hopes for Darrell were. But so with that said, I with this group, I think I'm at a 6. You could talk me into a 7, like probably a solid 6.5 if we wanted to do half grades, but I can just stay on 6. And because if they were to draft 2 guys with their first 2 picks on edge, like it wouldn't hurt my feelings at all. Like, okay, because of the longevity piece of who's here, and beyond this next year. And that's saying, okay, we're ready to move on. We can move on from Nwosu, we can move on from Taylor, or if they come out and they show out well, then we can end up keeping guys. And you can just not have too little depth at these positions. So I'll go to 6, and then for future, 2 is about right.
And when we think about it, a lot of the draft needs to focus on that future column. So often it's like, what do we have this season? Especially some of these positions. Yeah, these guys are finishing right now. They're not doing a lot of the things right. They are finishing. They're getting home with the sacks. But if we don't have that position ready to go for the future, you have to draft it now. You don't wait till next year when everybody's gone, because pass rushers, they're typically not awesome the very first year. They're not even close to their potential. So this column matters. What do you got, Adam, on our edge outside linebackers this year and future?
Yeah, I think if you're going to talk about the present, I give it about a 5. You could almost talk me into a 6, kind of like Brandan was saying, 6 to 7. And it's mainly because they're kind of dead average. If you look at them across the league. Now, is there upside? You bet. And really what drags it up to a 5 is I think Nwosu's fantastic. I mean, he's a B+, A- player out there, and he's easily the most consistent and best guy that we have on the edge. I am high on Mafe. I do like the way that he can set the edge, just like Clinton was talking about. I mean, he was very strong against the run. and just played a lot bigger than he was and with a lot of heart. And I do love his game. But at this point, he's still kind of a role player, bit player, or at least was last year. So I haven't seen that flash. And then you talk about Darrell Taylor, and it's like, is there a bigger tease like on the team? Every year we're all told, oh, he's right there, and oh man, he's really flashing and all that stuff. And every year he does pretty good. But the thing is that all these guys, when the chips are, in play, right? When it's the biggest moments of the game and you got to have it, right? You got to have that you got to have that pressure. They kind of disappear. They don't have that difference maker guy. They don't have one of the Boses. Yeah. They don't have one of the Watts, and I think we're all out of those, right? They've all been chosen and the mom wasn't making anymore, right? Like we're not gonna be able to find any
no more Bosa boys.
Which is a bummer because I would love to find me a Bosa somewhere out there. Maybe there's an illegitimate Bosa that's hanging out somewhere that we can find and bring in.
Surprise Bosa. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Alton Robinson, I'm excited about his return because he is a bigger guy that I think will help with them against the run on the edge. And just as Clinton had pointed out, had flashed and done really well. Now, the Tyreek Smith piece, that's interesting because you hear Pete talk about Tyreek Smith and he is jazzed about the guy. Like he's really excited. Now, he was also really excited about Darrell Taylor a lot. And, it's been hit or miss. So, yeah, five for right now. In terms of the future, now I didn't realize how many guys were not under contract for the next year. I mean, I think I realized it with Nwosu because that was a 2-year deal, but really not thinking much about Darrell Taylor's contract situation and all that. I don't think I can go as low as a 2 because I think that's like thumbing your nose in the face of John Schneider. Like, have a little faith, boys. Like I have faith in John, man. He has found edge rushers before, whether that's free agency and or the draft. So I'm probably about a 5.2. And the other thing is for the future. If you I did the little ditty about John Schneider's top 15 history the other day, put that out, right? And if you kind of look at that, the most logical, educated guess you can take from that is that they'll probably go edge in this draft. So
if they can,
yeah, well, there's going to be one of 3 guys that are in that top tier that are considered that way available when they're ready to pick. So they can get one. Yeah. We'll see if they do it, but I have a lot of faith in that. And I think that's probably where they're going in the draft. So I'm going to give the future a 5 as well. Like just kind of dead average.
So if we're factoring in faith for our future picks, I guess edge wouldn't be one of the places where I would have a ton of faith. Like ever since Cliff Averill and Michael Bennett left, what have we okay, they found Frank Clark but they let him go and they got some picks for him, but it hasn't been a strong group really.
It hasn't been a dumpster fire either.
No, that's the thing about edge.
9.
That's the thing. There's a couple things about edge. One, you want to love somebody on the edge. I mean, when you're an NFL fan, you want to have some, I think I was kind of shocked at first because the very middle number between 1 and 9 is 5. And really we had pretty good sacks. But when you think about it, there's nobody on our edge who's like, this guy, they have to block him or we are messing this drive up. We just don't have that, dude. We don't have, you want to have one of those, right? So it's kind of hard to say, yeah, we're just great at edge. We don't have that guy. The second big thing about our edge is we have these guys that can make plays and then be horrible. I mean, you can have that in soccer where a guy bursts forward and he makes something, but he left the field behind him and he just blows it for his team. And all these guys seem to have like their Achilles heel. Every one of them seem to have some area where if the team exploits it, our edge is a problem. And that's a little bit concerning. I don't know if you guys agree with me on that, but that's probably why we're not sniffing 8s and 9s or not even thinking about it, right?
Yeah, especially in the run game, right? Like when you talk about good and then bad, good, bad. Like it's a roller coaster out there. I mean, the Niners just run it all over us on the edge, and it is so infuriating. Like, be prepared. Like, I don't know why you don't know this is coming. This is what they do, and they I'm assuming they know Clint Hurts is a smart guy. Pete Carroll's a smart guy, yet they don't even come close, and it's infuriating.
Frank Clark was a great pick. But yeah, were you trying to say something, Clint, before we move?
Yeah, no, yeah. One thing I want on to say was to Adam, you were like, hey, you were talking about, that, hey, year after year with Taylor, but he's only had 2 years. He's been in the league 3 years. 1 year was a complete wash with injury. So he's only really had 2 years. Now, I was also equally disappointed with him last year, being like, he was the yin and yang. He was, and he also, he kind of got hot late. And the other thing that you said was like, there was no dude to really, make the play in the biggest moments. And I agree with you. That's correct. But I think Taylor does have that penchant for the big play. He strips the ball a lot. He gets a lot of strip sacks. I just don't know where the consistency is going to come.
Big play, bad play, right? He's big play, bad play.
I don't know that he could stop the run. So if you can't stop the run, how often can you be on the field besides
Third down.
Obvious third down passing play
And long,
or when you're playing the Chiefs or the Bills? And the other thing I thought was funny too, Adam, when you mentioned like Pete rah-rahing Tyreek Smith, right? And I'm just like, that's and it's just, that's Pete though, right? Pete rah-rahs everybody. So
he's breathing. He's breathing. He's pumping somebody up.
He's fired up. He's fired up. He can't wait to get him on the field. I hope it hits. But what was Tyreek Smith, a 5th round pick? So I think if we're putting any faith into a 5th round edge guy, it's probably a bit misplaced. Maybe he becomes a rotational guy. Maybe he does some good. Be awesome. Let's see some.
Did he drop because of injury concerns, or did the injury happen after the pick? Do you remember?
He dropped because he was the one that didn't he steal a lady's purse? There was some.
She wasn't using it.
It had something to do with
if he was looking for outfits, he could get in the government, right? If
Did he really steal a purse?
I think so. I think I hope I'm not wrong about that, but
Me too. Well,
but really, out of all these guys, there isn't that one closer, right? We had Carlos Dunlap there for a minute, and he just had that knack, right? In the biggest moment, he closed out 2 or 3 games the last season he was on the team. And we just need the young version of that. Now, did that guy grow on trees? No, but that's what they're looking for.
I think
no opposing fan faces the Seahawks, and if they say 5 guys they're worried about, nobody's pulling one of our edge guys, and that's a bummer.
Yeah, I agree. I do think Nwosu can get there. And I think, but I think it stems from having much better interior pressure than we got last year. Like, help him out. So often he is getting around the edge, and the quarterback could just escape up the middle because there's nothing there. And it's like, you don't give him an escape route, you'll see Nwosu, I think, climb to 13, 14 sacks. And I think just by the law of averages there, some of those will be that 4th quarter sack that Adam's itching for. And then we'll be more fired up for the guy. Be like, oh, he came through the biggest moments. And it's actually because, Draymond did his job and pushed back the pile.
Well, Clinton, speaking of segues, how about we push right over to the defensive line? And this is the guys on the inside there. And we have 4 guys. If we're running 3-4, this is covering, a bunch of positions, but we only have 4 guys signed. You just mentioned Mr. Draymond Jones, our huge signing in the offseason. We have him for 3 years. Jaron Reed, we just picked back up for a couple years. We have Monet signed for 2 years, but we don't know when he'll be back, if he ever gets to play again. And then we have friend of the podcast, Miles Adams. Speaking of Adams, we'll start with Adam. What's your confidence in the defensive line 0 to 9 this year and on in the future?
Well, at this exact moment in time, it's about a 4. And that seems crazy considering that their biggest free agent signing was one of the interior linemen, right? And Draymond Jones. And he's a heck of a talent.
Yeah.
But also known primarily as a pass rusher, not so much.
No nose tackles on the roster.
And this is where
except for Monet.
Can Jordan Reed do some of that? Yeah. Are they clamoring for a return of the pounding of the Puna? Yeah. Maybe Puna comes back. But right now, they are small. They are small up front. And I am so sick and tired of getting pushed around in the trenches on defense. It makes me sick week in and week out when that happens. And you want to get the maximum benefit of having Wags on your team, keep him clean. You want to get anything out of Devin Bush, keep him clean.
That's right.
Like, you want to be able to make it a little easier on the edge defenders in the run game, have some guys stout up front that are just plugging the holes and making guys bounce right to them into their arms.
Yeah.
Like, this is so important. And there's so many teams in the league that don't have a nose tackle. I was watching Brett Coleman talk a little bit about some of the nose tackle prospects coming in this year, and made an example out of the Buffalo Bills. He's like, they were bounced from the playoffs because they didn't have a nose tackle. Their dude was injured and they had nobody else, and they just got it jellied right down their throat. I can't stand it, and it's got to stop. And I wish I had faith, but then you look at Pete and John's draft history when it comes to nose tackles and DTs, they're all on the small side for as far as league average.
But they are pretty good on older free agents, aren't they? On the nose tackle, don't you kind of like what they do?
Yeah, no, they've been fine there, but man, we need some big drinks of water in there, and they're just not there. And then you talk about it. I mean, 4 dudes that are on the interior right now, like, what, they're going to play every snap for 16 games, like 17 games? This is not happening. Now, Miles Adams is a fantastic rotational piece and a key contributor, and I'm fired up for what he did last year and what his potential is. I dig the guy, but man, overall, even with Draymond, which we couldn't put in on the edge, right? Like, in that discussion, because I think he's going to be out on that more edge area during.
He's going to be defensive line, right? He's going to play like 5 or 3, isn't he?
He could go all the way out to, wide 9. Like, he's done it. I mean,
really? Okay. I didn't know that.
In passing situations, sure, you bet. But man alive, if now in the passing game, if Jordan Reed can have a turn back the clock season, if Draymond Jones brings that game that he flashed in Denver, holy cow, in the passing game, I think it's looking pretty good up front. But in terms of the run game, which is obviously the biggest concern, dumpster fire. For the future, where's my confidence on this? About a 3. About a 3.
Okay.
And that's only because, I mean, let's say they get Jalen Carter. Cool. Like, maybe he's freaking fantastic, and he could very well be, but he could also be Albert Hainsworth. Like that's on the table now.
Yeah, no, it is.
I don't know him. He could be a fine fellow. I don't know, but man, it's just hard to have confidence. So 4 for now, 3 in the future.
Brandon, will go to you. And if everything on this off season, tell us what you think about the confidence, and why the worst decision John Schneider's ever made is sign Drew Lock and let Al Woods go. Go ahead, Brandon.
Wait now.
That was the this or that. It was Drew Lock, and I don't know.
I mean, I've loved this offseason. I just can't understand how we spent $4 million on Drew Lock and we can't give Al Woods the $3 million that we saved by cutting him. It doesn't make any sense to me. It makes me crazy to think about it, but I do love the offseason. That just, I can't fathom it. And I guess it's not my show. So go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah. Well, Al Woods is closer to 44 than he probably needs to be. And
yeah.
So
yeah, he's pushing age as well as how he pushes piles. But
yeah. So they maybe saw something there to make him think that maybe he could be getting to that point. Yeah, as far as grading the group right now, that's probably, for the guys that are here, it's probably a 4. But if I'm throwing faith into this argument like Adam did with the previous areas, then I would be more at a 6 for the future, because for one, it's not that hard to find guys who can be competent to plug up the middle of the defensive line. And whereas
seemed hard the last 2 years.
Well, I mean, they've had Al Woods, and maybe he's
then
not
what?
going anywhere. Yeah.
One guy doing great at it. Let's get rid of him. That'll improve things.
Well, but before that, I mean, they have a history of finding guys that have been adequate. And last year was a bit of an anomaly, but they didn't have help on the edge either. So and then the linebackers weren't great. So I have a hard time really putting a pin on which position group was most at fault, because the edge was bad at stopping the run. The interior D line was bad at stopping the run, and the linebackers were bad at stopping the run. So it's not like I could look at a point and go, oh, well, it was a Quentin Jefferson problem. or it was a Daryl Taylor.
All he did
problem.
was want to rush the passer, though. Quentin
Yeah.
Jefferson was like checked out on running plays.
Yeah, well, we hope that Jaron Reed won't be the guy who always wants to rush the passer anymore. But and then if Jaron Reed returns to his form before he left Seattle, then I would say, yeah, it could probably be more at a 5 with the interior group right now. And maybe they move Tyreek Smith toward the inside, and maybe I had him mixed up with a person who was stealing purses previously. I just remember the Seahawks drafting a guy who stole a purse, but I was trying to do a search while you guys were talking and I couldn't find anything about it.
Yeah.
So I probably mixed him up with somebody else, and now I feel bad.
Okay,
Good,
well,
because
let's
I don't
not
want to get
accuse.
farved like McAfee
Right.
did. So yeah.
They're gonna sue your show, Brandon, for
Well,
this.
why did he fall to
feel-
the 5th round? I remember. I mean, he came out of Ohio State, and I'm
thought it
going
was
back to Tyreek Smith.
I thought he had
Yeah.
a bad combine situation or something like that, and then they tried to say he was kind of injured going through drills, but maybe I'm wrong, and we're just throwing stuff out there on bad memories. So maybe,
Well, what I did see is that he did have some injury issues in his history, so it could have been completely based on that. And then,
my recollection of Tyreek was that he was effective on the field, but like he didn't jump out like with the spark scores and stuff like that. It was like, oh, okay, he's a regular athlete. They're all monsters out there, right? And
it was a deep draft class that year too.
Yeah,
at Edge.
That's
and he's not 44.
Right.
He's not.
Yeah.
He's not. Yeah.
Clinton,
So yeah.
What are your ratings for the inside the defensive line?
I'm a little bit more bullish, and it's mainly because I really like Miles Adams, and I like him not because he's our friend. I like him because I think he plays bigger. He's not the biggest body, and they ask him to do things like basically play nose, and he's good at it. And so I think the structure of the team will mean he'll get more snaps, and I think he's an effective player. So I think that raises the team up a little bit. Jaron Reed, I was more bullish on when we first signed him, and then we had that discussion where Adam really broke it down, and then heard some others too about like this might not be the guy you remember, and Draymond's got his challenges stopping the run too. But I'll put it at a square 5. I think I trust we'll figure it out. I trust we will. I trust for the future that we'll plug up the middle and probably draft. So I'm going to take it up to a 6 for the future. The one piece I never got 2 years ago, a full off season ago, I didn't get the Monet re-signing. I didn't get it. 2 years ago when he played a full year, I was like, he's okay. I don't think he's anything special. They re-signed him for pretty okay money. He wasn't great, and now he's hurt again, and probably not going to see the field. So I actually look at that as an opportunity to upgrade. Like somebody there, I think, can be better than Brian Monet. And hopefully maybe they bring back either Puna or Al Woods. And I really think that scheme-wise, they didn't do the interior guys any favors whatsoever with that mishmash of what they were trying to accomplish last year. When they were in more base style defenses, Puna was good. Shelby was good. They were better. They were effective. When they went to the smaller fronts, they got their asses kicked over and over and over again. Desai's left the building, and I just wonder if we get back to a little bit more of the traditional ways we used to play, that the Niners still play, and other teams still play, that I think is a more effective way to play defense right now. I think 3-4, you need special talent to play 3-4 effectively. And we just talked for a half an hour why we don't have special talent right now on this roster.
Yeah. Well, Brandon, we're going to move to the defensive back. We have not had good scores on the 3 in the front 7, so maybe we can feel a little bit better. We'll let you start us off here with corner, and maybe we can have some room for some positivity. I'm hoping it's possible here. Brandon, we have Tariq Woolen for 3 years. Awesome. Yeah. Trey Brown for 2 more, Kobe Bryant for 3 more, and then we have Mike Jackson and Dunn for this year. What's your confidence in the corners for this season?
I think I'm at a 7 for this season, just based off of one, having legit Pro Bowl talent on one side of the field, and then having a lot of depth that can, and somebody in Jackson who I think he hung in there very well this past season. So even if we had an average, another average Jackson season, like, we could live with that and be fine. I would like to see more focus on, the other positions. And if Jackson ends up being the weakest link as part of the secondary, then that would also, it would be fine. So I'm at a 7 with them in terms of the future. I think I'm also solidly as a 7, just because I think that there's room for improvement for some of the young guys to step up, whether it's Kobe Bryant, him being able to maybe grow into the role a bit more and figure it out at the NFL level a bit more. Trey Brown, if he can try and figure it out. I think that both of those guys are smart enough players that even if they don't have some of the physical tools, that they can figure things out and be solid veteran type players. And then Tariq can only, grow, maybe he grows into an all pro type player, which is definitely on the table. So I'm pretty happy with the cornerback group, although I think it has the ability that if they were to find a guy opposite Tariq, that it could be an incredible secondary.
If there was one we could make a 9, this would have a shot at it, especially if you're talking Julian Love playing nickelback or something. I mean, some of the time. Adam, I want to save you for last. I know you have strong opinions on corners, so let's hear from Clinton first on this position group, your confidence in the corners.
Yes. Okay. So Trey Brown is my Miles Adams of this group. I like Trey Brown. He just injured last year and took a bit to get back, and was underused last year. I'd like to see him used more. Trey Brown the year before he got hurt, he's good. He's sticky. You could play him in the slot. Trey Brown can cover. So the types of injuries, we saw it with Quandre Diggs. He gets hurt. He was really good the second half of last year. I think Trey Brown could have a bounce back year.
He's been battling de-Eskridge a lot in a lot of the ways.
Yeah, so a pretty significant injury, right? So hopefully Trey Brown could really show out. So I'm at a solid 6, and I'm not higher right now, and it's because, I'll give you a name. I would put it at 50% probability that Mike Jackson is our cornerback number 2, because a year ago at this time we were like, oh, cool. Sidney Jones, he had a good year, and he's just going to be he's pencil him in, and then he's just gone. It's just we're weird with our cornerback 2s. So I don't even know that Mike Jackson's going to be like an absolute, pencil him in starter. I think he's good enough to be. I just think we do weird things with our cornerbacks.
Kobe could rise, Trey could rise. Yeah,
maybe. And I think the faith-o-meter really tilts this thing to the future, that I'm a strong 7 or 8, because if I have faith in any of these positions, and Pete's still the head coach, he knows how to coach cornerbacks, man. And we don't need to take one in the first round. Maybe we do. Maybe we will. I prefer we don't. And we're still going to find dudes we can coach up, because of all the things Pete's great at. This is his specialty, man.
Yeah. Good insight, gentlemen. I'm ready. Adam, bring the heat here on the corners. How you feeling for the corners this year and the future?
Yeah, for this year, it's at a 7 for me at this point, because Woolen showed that he belongs, right? And then you hear Diggs and everybody that's been around football for a while be like, he doesn't even know what he's doing yet. I mean, get him a full off season of learning under Pete. And it always takes guys a year or 2 to get that whole kick step thing down and all that. I think Woolen's game is going to rise even more. Right now, he's probably a top 15 corner, maybe top 10. I think he could easily be top 5 this year and be one of the guys people are talking about as, you just don't test him. Like that's a side of the field that's now gone.
Yeah.
Mike Jackson impressed me overall with the way that he was able to hang. Not that he's anything special, like Clinton was kind of getting at, but was serviceable. That's a great depth piece. That's a guy that, hey, if Trey Brown doesn't come back after now having a full year to really be back, then you got Mike Jackson in your hip pocket. Okay, cool. That I feel comfortable-ish there.
It takes really good throws to beat Mike Jackson. That's what I like about it. It's not. Yeah. He's not just getting beat.
And he's tough. Yeah, he's not just getting beat, wide open stuff, like Kobe. A lot of people are way higher on Kobe Bryant than I am. He drove me absolutely insane playing the slot. He just does not have the quick twitch ability to either one of those, however that pans out. But he just
he titles your fancy, not a lot.
It's just not there. He doesn't have the quicks to stay with those speedy slot guys. It's just, and that's why he fell in the draft, right? Even though he was the guy who got the award for being the best college corner last year when he was sharing the field with Sauce Gardner.
He might be a better outside corner than a slot corner.
He might know how to use the boundary.
That was the part that was so confusing to me, that like he's not like his scores, the way he tests and all that stuff. It's like he seems like more cerebral and he knows how to cover, but he doesn't know how to cover the Jackson Smith and Jigbas of the world, like, or the Tyler Lockett's of the world, who just know how to get open, which is a tough deal. That's a tough person to cover in the NFL. But taking a guy who was an outside guy who played across from Sauce, who saw all the smoke because they didn't throw the ball to Sauce at all on Cincinnati, who was really good on the outside. It was odd to me that they were like, you're a slot corner now. And that was weird for me.
It's not that odd in terms of where he could make it on the field, though. I don't think he was at the point to where they wanted to trust him as an outside guy. And Mike Jackson played so well that he didn't. If Mike Jackson would have gone out and stunk at that side of the field, then moving Kobe to that spot, we might have seen that move. But I think that he just happened to be the third best corner on the team last year, and that put him at slot.
Yeah, right. I did think it was weird that Trey Brown, I know he's coming back from an injury, but that Trey Brown didn't get more run, especially as the year wore on, to be like, is this the best we could do with slot? It's maybe something else is up that we just don't know about.
And that's an important position in the run game too. I mean, you're basically the other inside linebacker whenever the team decides to run. It's a different position. It just really is. You don't have the boundary to play with. I mean, you just pick up football. It's a total different position to cover the inside. They're going any direction. No doubt. Did you have a rating, Clinton, for the future for corner?
I think I went with a 7.
You did? Okay. I know you had a 7 for this year. Well, let's stick with you and we'll go right to safety.
Can I talk about the future and some other things here? Like,
did you get it was you. I had the, yep, you're right. I'm sorry. Terrible job by Phil. It's you that I don't have your future. Yeah, go ahead, Adam.
Well, yeah. So kind of where I was going with Kobe in the slot was exactly where Brandan and Clinton went with it. I do think that there's a legitimate chance that you could throw him outside and he could be, serviceably better, because you're generally dealing with a lot more straight line speed guys on the outside. And you don't have to be the fastest dude in the room to keep up with those guys. You can out-mental him, right? I mean, Sherman wasn't exactly the fastest corner in the league, but yet would run the routes for the dudes because he was such a cerebral player. And I think Kobe can have that ability. He just doesn't quite have the size. So I like Kobe in terms of he does have some upside. Just get him out of the slot, for gosh sakes. Like, we just can't have that no more. In terms of the future, Woolen's young on the ascent. Trey Brown, if he can have a healthy year, he's a heck of a corner. Mike Jackson's a good depth piece. Kobe, I think there's probably some things that can happen there with him that will unlock his ability a little bit more. But to Clinton's point, I mean, heck, these guys find corners. And Pete knows how to coach them, and they do it every year. So as far as the future goes, for me, it's probably an 8, because whether or not they draft a corner in the first round, which I have mixed feelings on, but I do kind of see, like, if you go out there, let's say you get Witherspoon, right?
Yeah.
He has an edge, an attitude that these guys are missing. Like, as much as I love Woolen, he's not a dog in the run game. Like, he's not out there thumping people. Nobody fears him like they feared Brandon Browner. Like, Wes Welker has nightmares about Brandon Browner. Like, he just lit people up. Sherm was a thumper in the run game and a sure tackler. None of these guys are that right now in the run game, and that's really a frustrating thing for me. So they need to find. And it doesn't have to be Witherspoon. They could get that guy later on in the draft too, and I'd be cool with it. But we need some more boom back in the secondary. In right now, it's just lacking. And the last thing about the corners, Because I think some people, I mean, obviously everybody likes Woolen, but then everybody's like, well, you know, Trey Brown, he's okay. Mike Jackson, he's okay. Like all that. They held up okay when they got zero help from the pass rush for the most part. Like the edge was not great, and these things work hand in glove together. So I think they're going to get edge figured out a little bit better. Bring in another dude or two. Pete will coach him up. Woolen's going to ascend to being a top 5 guy. And 8 for me on the future.
Awesome. Yeah. And they're young. They got room to grow. And fair point on the pressure. Our pressure, if anywhere, was on the outside. It wasn't up the middle. And that kills your linebackers and your nickel cornerback for trying, because who are you trying to defend? You're trying to defend those dump offs right over the middle. And we're getting murdered there.
Smoked.
Clinton. What's that?
Yes. I was saying we get smoked over the middle every year.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Clinton safety. And I did put Love here, though I know that it sounds like he might be doing some nickel. So, I mean, and that is kind of a safety-ish role, but we got guys for a few years. Jamal, we have for 3, Diggs, we have for 2, Love, we have for 2, and Joey Blunt, we have for 2. Those are the 4 safeties we currently have on the roster. How you feeling about them, Quentin?
Yeah. So because Jamal Adams put out his own hype video where he was doing like high knees and skaters, that moves the needle for a guy like me because I'm an emotional being. So me seeing him back out there, this score goes along with Jamal Adams hits the field healthy by week 6 when I give this score and plays the rest of the time. So I'm at like a solid 7. I think it's a really solid group. Quandre proved to me where like I was going through maybe Quandre lost a step. And you have to remind yourself, I had to remind myself, I'll speak for me, that he came off a nasty injury. And then, lo and behold, last 6, 7, 8 games of the year, interceptions go back up. He's flying around the ball again. And he's the difference maker. He's been even before he came to Seattle when Detroit traded him for really no good reason for a low draft pick. So I'm at a solid 7. I'm really excited to see what they do with Julian Love. I'm still bumming that we gave Ryan Neal away for nothing. We gave a very competent safety who played a very good version of Jamal Adams.
I think we weren't cutthroat enough. I think we were too kind. I think we let him get a starting shot.
We made a mistake when we didn't give him a 2nd-round tender and $4 million. And we gave that lighter tender at 2 point something.
Okay.
And it set the whole thing in motion that he's exposed. I think it's a mistake. You can't draft.
But nobody picked up that tender. They just ended up rescinding.
Nobody picked up that tender. But then what did he get from Tampa Bay? Well, he got
less.
A 1-year deal.
Less than the tendered amount. I think we were too nice. We should have made him. Nope, you're going to sit there and you're either going to sign it or
you're going to sit there and you're going to be the 4th string guy on our team yet again after all the time that you put in on the team. And
okay, now you're making me feel heartless, Brandon.
I wish Neal was still on this team. I think we kind of did him a little. Well, maybe we didn't do him dirty because now he's playing in Tampa.
Oh, we were classy. We did him a class job, letting him go get a shot.
Either way, I'll end it. It's a 7. It's a solid group, but that again, Jamal is a keystone there because he's a huge part of that 7 for me.
Adam, how do you feel? I'm gonna let Brandon go last on the safety here because I think he's got some stuff. I can sense it. Adam, how do you feel? How do you feel about this safety group?
I'm probably about an 8 for this year, and only because one of these years it has to come together for Adams, right, on the health front. And just once. Who knows if he could do it?
If it does, you're right. I think if it does, you're right. It's an 8 for sure.
So I'm banking on injury luck finally just, twisting a little bit there for the guy. Diggs, he played great towards the end of the year. And you listen to some of his interviews, he was talking about how it took him a long time to trust it. He said there was a lot of times where I would be looking at a play and I was, knew I could do something, but I was like, do I really want to, test that leg and really push off and just go balls out? And by the end of the year, he felt comfortable with that. So I think we're going to get full on Diggs. Plus his leadership is off the freaking charts. Diggs might be one of my favorite players on this team. I love hearing him talk. Everything he does is dope and it's great. I love me some Diggs. So I think Diggs and Adams make a really terrific pairing. Again, the health part, who knows?
Yeah.
The Julian Love signing. you talked about bringing in Drew Lock and then letting go Al Woods. This was the one for me where I was like, what are we doing here with Julian Love and letting go of Al Woods? Like, we've got Ryan Neal and he's going to be on the cheap. And now Julian Love, by all accounts, is a good player, right? I'm not super familiar with him. He was a captain at some point and all that stuff. Is he really a massive upgrade over Ryan Neal? I don't know. Maybe, or let's say he's even a 15% upgrade over Ryan Neal. Is it worth giving him that deal and getting rid of Al Woods for that? Or, being able to pay for another DT? I don't know that it is. Now, is he great Jamal Adams insurance? Yeah, but so is Ryan Neal. I don't know. So
what if he's a star up in the front there playing some nickel and then he could swing back to be the third safety? What if he's just the piece? You don't think there's a chance of that happening, Adam?
There's definitely a chance that big nickel thing finally comes together, and that could be exciting. I've been into that idea for a long time, and the big dime, all that stuff, and that could be really cool. We'll see if they actually utilize it, but if they don't get any help up front, then what's the point? Like, I don't understand. You got all this tied up on the back end, but you have nothing on the front end to support them. It's unbelievably frustrating. So for the future, I'm probably more like a 5 because sure, you got Adams on contract for 3 more years. How many of those is he going to play? Diggs, he's getting older. He's not a spring chicken anymore. And at safety, man, you take hits. Those are short careers at safety, especially for an undersized guy like Diggs is. Julian Love could be a great young guy coming up through here, and maybe he's the answer going forward and all that, but the depth just isn't there, and I don't see him spending a lot of draft capital this year on the safety position. So probably about a 5 for the future.
Okay. How do you feel, Brandon? How do you feel about the Buffalo nickel? I mean, the big nickel. How do you feel about the safety position as we close out our confidence in our position groups?
Yeah, I'm pretty well in agreement with Adam in terms of his numbers at this position because I hate to take down my ranking going into the season just based on injury history and trying to predict that bad injury luck will continue because I just, it's so random for one. And then,
but then you can have Bob Sanders syndrome too. Like,
you can,
amazing player. Then all of a sudden the wheels just fall right off the bus.
Yeah, it's possible. But in terms of talent level going into this year, I mean, the reason why I'm at an 8 is because they have the kind of depth and talent that allows you to let a guy like Ryan Neal go. And I think part of the thinking around this is that you think that Julian Love can maybe play a little bit more of that slot position, maybe better than Kobe could, because if you can upgrade that position to where on third down, you're not expecting them to target linebacker or slot corner every single time. That would fix some of the third down, at least some of the third and short issues, right? So at an 8, just based on depth, based on the starters that they have, Love Diggs. Also, one of my favorite players, he's lobbying for Will Anderson. Hopefully he's available to draft because he put out on Twitter this week that Will Anderson's his guy for the Seahawks to draft.
I love that.
Yeah, I think general manager position in the future for Quandre Diggs. We've seen him out on Twitter as a recruiter, which is good.
Yeah, too, at least a recruiter, right?
And maybe he sees that
football coach. College, he's going to go the Dion route, right? Like,
I don't know. I want him like Steve Hutchinson. I want him to stick around and be a guy that just hypes people up and brings them to the team.
I like that too.
So. But I'm not trying to get Quandre off the field anytime soon either, because what he did last year came on toward the end, another Pro Bowl level season. I like and he's one of the guys that brings up the grade in terms of, so I'd probably be more to 6, I think, in the future, where Adam was at a 5, but and part of that is too, I think they have some potential, young guys that they see coming up through the ranks to again, why you could let Neal go and hopefully he does well in Tampa, rooting for him. But it would have been nice to have him on the team. It's just, I got
one thing there that Adam said about Julian Love and like is he $6 million versus say 2 million or so for 2.5 million for Neil. And that's a pretty big gap. This is not a prediction, more as like the hope is it's a year from now. And we're talking about Julian Love the way we talk about Nuosu this year. It's like, oh, we got a guy right in his prime at it turns out a really good deal. He could have been and should have been a $12 million safety. He's playing at that level, and we got him at 6. I don't know that's going to happen. I really like the versatility that Julian Love does bring. I did get to watch a decent amount of him, watching a bit of the Giants out here on the East Coast. But that's more of a hope than it is a prediction at this point. And Phil, I don't think I gave you my future. I'm down to a 6 on the future state for our safeties as well to round it out.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
I thought he had 5, and then he brought it up based on what Adam and I said, but I could
He
be
just
wrong.
did. I like the way Brandon, he was speaking about our safeties, and he said, I love Diggs, Adam, right? And that's our love Diggs and Adam. So that was a good way to put it there. Well, I wouldn't be what if without at least one kind of surprise question. We've put our confidence here together, and so I'm going to ask you guys all pretty much the same question, and you can be strict about it, or you can answer it how you feel. It's obvious. I won't go through all the ratings. I will post these in the Discord. Maybe I can figure out how to put it in the Facebook Ring of Honor. I don't know if I'm skilled enough to do that, but I can get in the Discord. The confidence that we don't have is obviously in our front 7. I mean, it is painfully obvious. We would take the front 7 on most teams over ours, it appears. That's kind of where we're at. On the interior O-line, again, from the last show, we're a little low there. Other places we feel either good or especially good. And so that's a good sign. When we go toward the draft, and that's coming up here in just 10 days from our recording of this, when you think about improvement gap, right? So we're low in an area. Can we really improve in the draft with this? Or the other way you could go is, hey, let's make our strength one of the best units in all of football. That's the other way. And there's potential to do that with receiver or corner. I think if we land the right player, possibly even tight end or running back, right? I don't know, however much you decide they can make a difference. I don't know if it could happen right away with edge, but we could get closer. Here's the question. When you think about an improvement gap, you'd like to see improvement gap. I know we can get best player available. There's places to improve all over the team, except for quarterback won't be improved in this year. If we draft one right away, maybe in the future it could. Here's a question for all three. I don't know who's ready to go first, but if within our first 2 days, we currently have 5 picks, maybe we'll have more if we trade down. But in the first 2 days, rounds 1, 2, and 3, if you can get 3 positions helped in the first 2 days, rank your top 3 positions you want to see helped. And that can mean for this year, or it can mean for the future. But with this draft, you want to see strengthening of these positions. Is anybody excited to go first, or do you want me to pick?
I'm excited to go first.
Okay. Clinton's excited to go first.
I'm excited. However,
it
is Brandon's birthday. So Brandon, you go first. You got.
Do you want to go first, or do you want to go last, Brandon?
I'll go first. What the heck? I think that if I'm going to pick 3 positions, the one that makes the most sense to me as having an impact in multiple aspects would be interior O-line, whether it's center or guard. Yeah. And I think I have a guy that I like at center. But I don't think that center can have like a physically imposing aspect to it, like I talked about in one of the previous shows. So I think right guard has the biggest upside in terms of that delta that can improve through the draft. And so if they went there with one of the first 3 picks, I would pick that. Interior defensive line, I think, has that potential. If they're not sold on Carter, then I don't know if that
Mozzie maybe.
Brzee is, but I don't think that Brzee is really a pass rusher type guy. But even if it's a run stopper that could allow at least plug up the middle somehow. And then so I'm gonna go interior D line, interior offensive line, and then I'm going to pick linebacker because of the confidence that we have in
the future,
particularly in the future at that spot. So, whether it's a guy like Jack Campbell, maybe that they can go for at linebacker with one of those early picks. Or the thing about these positions is that if you're finding guys that are, run stoppers on the interior or decent linebackers, those are guys that you can find in the third round, maybe even the fourth. Yeah. And so I could see them maybe improving some other positions instead early, with the expectation that you can find dudes that could come in and compete for those spots and late on day 2 and then into day 3.
Because there's a bunch of nose tackles I've heard, like 5th, 6th round, and then we got Puna after the draft. So It's not like So 1, 2, 3, you're saying interior O-line, D-line, linebacker. That's you'd hope to get those 3 on the first 2 days. That would be great. Okay, Clinton, second man up. What 3 groups do you hope we get addressed? You could see a big improvement, or you want to make one a great strength. You just want to make it one a great strength. You want to see these 3 groups addressed in the first 2 days.
Yeah, and this was a part of the conversation that we had on the latest video that just went live as we were recording this one, right? The first thing for me is we got to shore up the defensive tackle, interior defensive line, and again, with folks who can get the premier guys who can get pressure. I'd like to see us go overweight there, whether that means Jalen Carter, whether that means Keanu Benton, they work for me. I'm excited by those guys. So I'd like to see us, of the first 5 picks, I'd like to see 2 of them go to defensive tackle, double up. If one of them hits, great. Kind of strategy we took last year throughout the draft. We just took 2 of each, and sometimes they both worked, and sometimes one worked, which is still pretty good for a hit rate. The second one for me is that good to great. I am a big,
see, Clinton, I thought that was your first and your second one. Now you're saying you get another.
Just defensive tackle. That's the first.
I'm just messing with
that. Wide receiver for me is the good to great. I think we are in prime position with a pick right in that 20 spot where we can get one of the top 3 wide receivers in not a great group of wide receivers, but a pretty front loaded, where people seem to agree the first 3 to 5 guys can be quite effective, quite good. Maybe the top 3 guys can be really, really good. So that's wide receiver. And then I'm with Brandan, linebacker. I like Drew Sanders. I like to get that dude who can play hybridish. He can play a little bit like, God willing, like a Micah Parsons out there, really fly around the ball. But if they got Campbell from Iowa, I mean, sheesh, that guy's your classic linebacker.
Tackler.
Yeah, man. So I really want to improve on linebacker too. So that's it for me, man. Stuff the friggin' run and cause pressure up the middle, get more dynamic with your third wide receiver, and get another linebacker in here that doesn't make me think that our linebacking core is bad.
So your only switch from Birthday Boy is you would rather have a dynamic receiver than an interior O-line, because you're thinking, hey, I might be able to get that later in the draft. To get somebody that's a difference maker, I need him earlier.
I think our O-line's pretty good. I think Evan Brown is a good enough center, and that I think I'm not saying, hey,
he's Phil Haynes truther is why.
Yeah, I am. I'm a beefy boy truther, but
he's a Joey Hunt truther. That's
Brandon. What about Joey Hunt?
Yeah. But I do think we can get a decent guard, a good guard, later, like late 3rd round or 4th round, and be fine there and be fine. I get the appeal of getting the guy, but I'm okay to roll the dice on a guard.
How about you, Adam? Top 3 positions you'd love to see improved on the first 2 days?
Yeah. The top 3 positions for me have to be defensive tackle, and then defensive tackle. Okay. That's a little bit in jest, but let us all get in our time machine here for a quick second and remember an experiment the Seahawks ran in 2020. I remember when they signed Quentin Dunbar, and he was hyped up as being, that dude, right? That they got him for a song, and he's a really good cover corner, and he's going to fit right in Pete's defense. And we're all like, oh my gosh, we got Shaq Griffin, we got DJ Reed, and then we got Dunbar coming in, and then we got Diggs and Adams as safety. We have LOB 2.0, right? And then we had this whole discussion on the pod, like, well, if you got a great back end like that, does that help the pass rush get home because they're sticky and they can cover for a little longer? And it was kind of that chicken and the egg discussion of, does the pass rush make the corners, or the corners make the pass rush? And what did we learn? The corners don't make the pass rush. And Quentin Dunbar was a disaster. And really, if you want to help the defense, if you want to help the back end of the defense, if you want to help Geno Smith in the offense, then get your defensive line in freaking order so that you can get off the field, get them the ball back. They're not constantly playing behind. Then you don't have to have 3-4 stud receivers out there. Like you can easily pick guys apart with a more consistent running game because you're not playing from behind. So first off, has to be defensive tackle. It has to be like it doesn't have to be the first pick, but in those first 2 rounds, like you're saying,
but it might be. Yeah.
But it might be, and I'd be okay with it, obviously. The next is edge, because again, let's just get back to defensive line. We need that difference maker there that puts the fear of God in opposing quarterbacks. Like when they step back for or a 3-step drop, they're shaking in their boots because dude's coming around the edge. He's about to knock his head off, and he does it consistently against their best tackle every time. Like you want that dude. So defensive tackle, edge, and then it would be guard, because look, I know these aren't sexy positions and they're not the ones that get most people all fired up about things. But if you go back throughout the history of
edge
football,
gets
from
people
when it
fired up.
started,
Who doesn't get fired up about edge, Adam? Who doesn't get fired up about edge? Have you heard somebody doesn't get fired up about edge?
Most people that enjoyed that Kansas City Rams game down in Mexico City, those guys don't get fired up about edge because defense is optional in their mind. And that's where the league would like to go. So what we've learned over the history of freaking football, the game is won and lost in the trenches. The Eagles are an amazing example of this from the last year. You have to be dominant there. So yes, I like Evan Brown coming in at center. He's huge. He's a big dude. The tackles, big dudes, and they can get it done. I still believe in Damian Lewis. I think he's a solid guard. Let's get one more dude to plug in there. And then you've got Phil Haynes as a great rotational piece to help with injuries and things like that. Let's make the lines great again, man. Let's get down to pounding the rock and just stealing the souls out of the 49ers and the Rams and the Cards. That's what I want.
I kind of like it. And you're convincing me. I know there's something to be said to being so good at passing that you terrify the other team out of their run game. But I'd really like to just be able to stop a team's run game and know we can do it, right?
Can you be an awesome team at passing if your offensive line isn't great?
No.
You can't.
No.
So it all starts and stops there. And especially the offensive line. People glaze over, but it's where it's at. And it's hard, especially like Brandon was saying, you can find interior linebackers later in the draft in that sort of thing, right? You can even find them next year when you're drafting lower because we have an awesome year and either win the Super Bowl or knocking on the door of it. Like you can address that position then. What's hard to find is big, tough, athletic, talented guys in the trenches. Those are the hard things to find. So make those rare picks at the top of the draft.
All right, gentlemen, I like it. I'm getting excited about the draft. I think we're planning to have some draft live shows, right? Are we going to do that, Brandon? We're going to get
so. Yeah.
I would love to.
I'm hoping. I know Adam said defensive tackle, but I mean, we got to have a spot for our big free agent signing, Draymond Jones, to play, right? Like we can't just draft dudes that put him on the bench.
How many interior D linemen do you play at one time?
I mean, at most 2, right?
2 to 3, right?
It depends
depending on what front you're in and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's just in the first wave of dudes. Like you need to have 2-3 waves of dudes to throw at people. That's what makes D lines terrifying. That's what people feared from us in 13.
Well, I was thinking when you mentioned Quentin Dunbar that maybe Ziggy Ansah is still available, and that would stow it all up. Remember we got excited.
Yeah.
I got excited about Ziggy Ansah and Quentin Dunbar. Shame on me.
I'm excited about the draft, though, gentlemen.
Yes,
it's getting close. It's going to be fun. There's so many names that we can look forward to being our next Seahawks. Well, a lot of it that we don't know is the character, like only Schneider and those guys that have visited. People can watch tape, but we want football players that love football and that hopefully they've met with and they know a little something about. Like Carter, if you just watch his tape, you want him, but who knows behind the scenes, all that other stuff. Were you trying to say something, Adam?
No, I just wanted to piggyback on your point because I heard Schneider say something in an interview just this last week, and he's like,
Oh yeah.
it's easy to evaluate players. He's like, that's easy. I was like, oh, that disappoints me because I thought that was a relatively hard. I thought I might be good at it in a couple spots. Well, apparently that's all easy. So I'm a dummy. He said the hard part was everything else, just like you were talking about with the interviews and the people's makeups and all that sort of thing. So yeah, they'll put their due diligence in. I'm sure of it.
And they're good drafters. There's no, you look at it any way you look at it over their years of drafting, they're toward the tops on that. So we should have something to look forward to. Gentlemen, anything need to add before we close it out?
Hey, subscribe to the show on YouTube. Getintheflock.com. Don't forget.
Say happy
I started
birthday to
off the show
Brandan.
with it. I gotta close with it.
It's
And if
let's
you don't do it, basically you're saying, Brandon, don't have a happy birthday, have a terrible birthday. You're wishing him
Yeah.
a bad year.
Yeah,
So
it's not
get
cool.
in there, click, do it.
And I
We
mean,
don't
you
like-
guys had your birthday. I mean, Clinton and Adam, you had yours last month. So I feel
Great
like
birthday.
now's the time.
So do you want Clinton to sing happy birthday to you, or just give us a Mike Jackson tee-hee or something like that? What do you prefer for your birthday, Brandon?
I need a tee-hee.
Okay.
Okay, even though I'm in a hotel and it's almost 11 o'clock at night.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Well, gentlemen, what if we say go Hawks?
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.